Hi everyone and welcome back to Rachel's Enchanting Cakes. For today's tutorial I'm going to be showing you how to make this super cute mini cake on a Halloween theme. Just a little note, if you are using an Android device, YouTube is actually trying to help small creators by creating something called a hype button. So if you notice this under this particular video on your phone, if you click on there, it will help this video and can be used 3 times in total. Let's see what all the hype is about. So, the witch's legs are inserted correctly into the cake. We have this delicious jelly on top and overall a spectacular cake, perfect for a beginner. Let's make a start. Start by baking 2 4-inch round sponge cakes. You can find this recipe over on my channel and I will leave a link in the description below the video. You will then need either a 4-inch round ganache plate or you can use a cake drum. We just need something to raise the cake up. Simply place the first layer of cake directly onto the cake drum or the ganache plate. Don't use any buttercream as this is going to be removed at a later stage. Before we add any filling, we need to carve a little bit of cake away. So take your second layer of cake and simply place it on top of the first. Using a cupcake cutter, then place an indentation directly in the centre. I want you to picture the top of this cake is the base of the cauldron, whereas the base of the cake at the moment will be the top. All you want to do now is simply carve away. I want you to imagine the base of the cauldron, that smooth shape that it has. Just do a little bit at a time because it can be harder to fix if you accidentally take away too much cake. Don't be anxious, just follow your guide and take your time with this. Using some American buttercream in a disposable piping bag, I then simply pipe the top of this cake. Now, if you wanted to, you could just go around the rim and then fill the centre with some jam and add some more buttercream. But for the purpose of this tutorial, I'm just wanting a nice thick layer of buttercream and it will make your mini cakes more stable. Simply pipe the centre and then smooth this out. Place your second layer of cake directly on top and give this a crumb coat. Tip: when you have filled the cake, if you place it in the fridge covered with cling film for a short period of time and allow the buttercream in the centre to set, when you do add your second layer of cake, it will prevent it from bulging. Today I am using ready-made black the sugar paste because I know that this will hold its shape once set. I then have 300 grams of this that I have kneaded and I'm going to be rolling this out in between 5mm spaces. Whilst you are rolling, do your best to try to keep this in a circular shape. Simply drape this directly over your cake. You want to pull it down and then just make sure it's touching the baking paper. This shape is relatively simple to cover because we need a rim for the actual cauldron, so there's not really many pleats to negotiate. I then go around the sides with a couple of smoothers. Take your time doing this and don't forget to do the top. Remove the excess fondant. If you have a large round cutter, that would be perfect to actually do this and it would be so even. I then placed mine in the fridge overnight so that when I removed it, it prevented me accidentally damaging the cake because the fondant had gone lovely and hard. So the cake has been left to set. It has been placed on a cake drum and then I simply remove the plate. Remember, you can use a cake drum. You just want something that's roughly 5mm thick. So for the witch's legs, you are going to need some florist wire. Here I am using a number 18 and some florist tape. There is a correct way to insert this into a cake, and this is what you would always use for things like sugar flowers and any gravity-defying models. Start by simply bending the wire in half. We can always cut off any excess on the end, but we are then going to use the florist tape to get this the shape we actually want. Now, none of this wire is actually going to be touching the cake, so I need the base the correct size by squeezing it together and then simply bending the wire out for the legs so that we have room to insert it into something called a posy pick that protects the cake from actually touching any of the wire. We now want to cover this with some florist wire. So starting at the base, this is what's going to be going in the posy pick. I secure this into place by just going round it. You then want to go one of the legs and simply repeat it for the other leg. Make sure all of the wire is completely covered. I am only using fondant for this because the wires are actually going to be supporting everything. You want to roll out 2 even sausage shapes. Here I am rolling out the black and then I roll out the purple. The secret when you're rolling these out, you want to keep your fingers even and keep moving from the center to the outside. This will help you create the perfect even shape. You now want to attach these together in sort of a spiral shape. Now I've used just a little bit too much icing sugar, so mine does struggle to stick slightly. But once you have got both of your sausage shapes in this spiral, you then want to roll this out again so it becomes a 2-toned sausage shape, perfect for the witch's legs. All I did then was cut the sausage shape in half so I had a smaller piece. I've applied a small amount of edible glue to the wire so it is a little bit sticky and you will get some of this on your hands. And you then gently thread the fondant directly onto the wire until you get all the way to the base. So now we need to create the shoes. Very, very easy technique. Starting with a small amount of black fondant. You can already see I've created one just here. We are just going to use some very, very basic shapes and create this with our hands. So you just want to start by gently pushing down at the front of the shoe and then turning it nice and pointy. Now, once you've made one of the shoes, it can take just that little bit longer to get the second one identical. If you weigh out the fondant as well, this can also make it a little bit easier because then you're using the same amount. We're then simply going to attach these directly to the ends of the wire. I have actually steamed the legs just to get rid of the icing sugar. We're going to use a small amount of edible glue and then leave them to set overnight. Tip: when you add each of the shoes, place some kitchen roll directly underneath so that these can then set at an angle and they will stay at an angle. So moving back to the cauldron, start by cutting out a 4-inch round piece of fondant, preferably in green. I then add a small amount of buttercream. This is going to act as a glue, and I simply stick it on the exposed piece of cake. You want to make sure that this part of the cake is protected because soon we will be using some jelly. Moving on to those drips down the side of the cauldron, I am using the drip icing cutter by FMM, but obviously you could do these freehand. I have rolled out a very thin piece of modelling paste this time, so I added a small amount of Tylo powder. Because I am only wanting the drips, I choose to remove the excess. I then place these on my cake. All I did then was randomly stick those drips directly to the edge of the cauldron with some edible glue. Once you have done this, take your time rolling out small balls. It doesn't matter if it's modelling paste or fondant. Your job now is to make sure that that rim is completely secure, ready for when we add the jelly. This is called a posy pick, and it is what is used to safely insert any type of wire into a cake. So for any roses that you have seen cascading up the sides of a cake, this is how the roses don't fall off, and it's also how they are inserted into a cake safely. It's a food safe plastic, it is not sharp, and you simply place the wire directly into the end, just like here. This is now ready to go directly into our cake. Now, in order to do this, I've just added a small amount of fondant to the centre. This is just to help secure it more, with some edible glue. Now, I don't want to accidentally damage those legs, so I very carefully push this down all the way to the base. Off camera, I then simply covered this with some more of the bubbles, and now I'm going to show you just how easy it is to add the jelly. You can choose any brand of jelly that you wish and simply follow the instructions on the packet. All I did that was different was to add a little bit of extra dark green food colouring. This was simply because I could not get the dark green that I was wanting for the cauldron. I do allow the jelly to cool down slightly, and I also make sure that my cake is completely chilled. The cake has been chilled first, and I have also allowed the jelly to cool down slightly. So it's still runny enough, as you can see. I'm using a syringe just to have more control over it rather than pouring it in. And just keep an eye out for any leaks. This is why it's very important to take your time when you're adding all of those fondant bubbles, but I think it adds the perfect finishing touch. And there we have it, our completed mini cauldron cake. So really very simple techniques used, very effective. It is all cake. If you mass produced these, so you were making quite a lot, you could do all the legs and the fondant work one day, get loads of the bubbles prepared as well, and then all you would have to do is crumb coat, cover the cakes, and if you do it in that sort of order, you'll get down them very, very, very quick. Happy baking, everyone. I really do hope I've helped you all again today. Thank you all for your amazing support, and I'll be back soon with an awful lot more new, completely free content.